Okay, so let's talk about a toy, a single doll really, that ended up sparking this huge global conversation. It's a story that's about so much more than plastic. It's about representation, it's about community, and yeah, it's about corporate messaging, all wrapped up in one of the most famous toys in the world.
And it all kind of kicks off with this really simple but powerful idea, right? That toys, they shape how kids see the world and just as importantly, how they see themselves. They're not just playthings. They're like the first building blocks for understanding our place in everything.
So, with that in mind, in January 2026, Mattel did something pretty big. They introduced the first ever Autistic Barbie doll. This was brand new territory for the Barbie universe.
But what is the story behind this one doll? You see, it's way more than just a new toy on a shelf. It's really the heart of this much bigger and honestly more complex story about what it means to be seen. So let's dive in and unpack it.
Okay, so first things first. To really get why this doll is such a big deal, we need a little context. It didn't just appear out of nowhere, right? It's actually part of a much larger strategy from Mattel, their Barbie Fashionistas line.
So, what's the deal with the Fashionistas line? Well, it's basically Mattel's big push to create a universe of dolls that actually looks like the world we live in. We're talking diverse body types, skin tones, hair textures, the whole shebang. They've already released dolls representing Down syndrome, vitiligo, and dolls with prosthetic limbs. And now, the Autistic Barbie joins that lineup.
But that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? How on earth do you design a single doll to represent something as diverse and varied as the autistic experience? I mean, where do you even start? Let's take a look at how they tackled that. Well, here's the most important part. Mattel didn't try to do this alone, and that's key. They knew they had to get this right. So for more than a year and a half, they worked side by side with the Autistic Self Advocacy Network, or ASN. And ASN is an organization run by and for autistic people, which is absolutely crucial.
And that partnership led to some really specific, really intentional design choices. Every single detail on this doll, from her clothes to her accessories, was thought through with guidance from the community. The goal was to authentically reflect the lived experiences of at least some people on the spectrum.
Let's look at some examples. See those articulated joints in her elbows and wrists? That wasn't an accident. They were put there so the doll could be posed in ways that represent stimming, repetitive movements that can be a really common and important way for some autistic people to process sensory info or even just express excitement.
And what about that little tablet she comes with? Well, that represents something called an AAC device. That stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. For some non-speaking autistic people, these are absolutely vital tools for communication.
So you can probably guess what happened next, right? A doll with all these super specific details gets released, and boom, it kicks off this massive and sometimes really divided conversation right inside the autistic community.
On one hand, for a lot of people, the reaction was just pure joy. I mean, think about it. It was this incredible feeling of finally being seen, of having a piece of your identity reflected and celebrated by a huge brand like Barbie. But on the flip side, for others, all that detail was actually the problem. Their concern was, hey, autism is a huge spectrum. How can one doll possibly represent all of that? There was a real worry that by picking these specific traits, the headphones, the fidget spinner, it might accidentally create a new stereotype of what autism is supposed to look like.
And yet, even within that debate, people saw the good in it. Take the AAC device. A lot of folks pointed out that having a mass-produced toy with an AAC could be a game changer for destigmatizing them, making kids who use them feel seen and even cool.
And really, what this whole conversation boils down to is this fundamental tension in representation, right? No one thing can ever capture everyone's experience. It's just impossible. So it sparks that classic debate. Is having some representation, even if it's not perfect, better than having none at all? Now, there was another really important layer to this whole conversation, and it had to do with a very deliberate choice Mattel made about the doll's identity.
See, they purposely designed the doll to be a woman of color. And for so many people, like the user who wrote this comment, that choice was huge. It was a clear signal that they wanted to shine a light on a group that is way too often left out of the public conversation around autism.
And this isn't just symbolic. It really matters. The CDC estimates that about 1 in every 31 8-year-olds in the US is diagnosed with autism. But here's the thing.
The data also shows that Black, Hispanic, and Asian children are actually diagnosed more often than white children. So that makes this kind of representation not just nice to have, but truly necessary.
Okay, but the story doesn't end there. There's one final twist, one more layer to peel back. And this one connects the doll itself to the official paperwork of the company that makes it.
So in 2024, if you looked at Mattel's public filings, the documents they give to investors, they were very open about their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. They called it out as a corporate priority.
But then fast forward just 1 year to the 2020 filings, and suddenly, that language is gone. That specific phrase about supporting diverse, equitable, and inclusive communities, it was just removed from the proxy statement.
So instead of talking directly about DEI, they started using much broader, more generic phrases, like saying they value a wide range of ideas and voices. And the shift, which was picked up on by people online, adds this whole other complicated corporate layer to the story of this very inclusive doll.
Which leaves us with a pretty tough question, doesn't it? What really matters more? Is it the representation you can hold in your hand, the doll on the shelf, or is it the corporate commitments you can't see? In today's world, when a company can make a product that everyone celebrates for being inclusive, while at the same time quietly backing away from the language of inclusion in their paperwork, what does authentic representation even mean?